fellow riders, we are back to Airhead Barn, and today in this episode we are going to continue this interesting restoration project. What we are going to do first is we will start with the engine top end assembly. First we are going to change half shell bearings on the connecting rods, then we will proceed with the cylinders and also previously restore the cylinder heads, and basically that's the plan for this episode, so please stay tuned. Previously we noticed there was some kind of scoring on these half shell bearings on the connecting rods, and first what we will start with is actually replacing these. Alright, so the easiest way is actually if you take, something like this, and then there is a hole here, you just drive it in and there it is. It easily goes out. Right, there's the old one. And this one out as well. So I want to clean this thing first. And then I'm just going to put a bit of alcohol, or you can use, brake cleaner, and give it really nice clean. Right, now when that's dry, we are going to take a clean, lint-free rag actually to wipe this down, because you really don't want any kind of dirt here. It needs to be perfectly clean when putting the new bearings. Okay, now we can start with inserting bearings. They are already cleaned. So this is how we are going to do it. First, align one side, needs to be perfectly flat. And now we can just snap it in place. Okay. With a piece of wood, there it is. So that just snaps. Now we are going to take another piece and do exactly the same thing. Right. Now we can proceed with the assembly. governals are already well cleaned with a lint-free rag, so we can actually put the connecting rod back. The way how you put it back is pins and holes, they need to look at the front, and then we are also going to put some of the assembly paste, just to have a good loop before oil is actually able to reach out inside. Okay. So for that purpose I like to use LM48 installation paste, liquid moly. Alright. That's enough. Okay. So as we said, holes look front, and we are going to put it from here and then just rotate it toward the other side. And then on the other side I'm actually pushing it with the other hand, so it basically stays perpendicular. Now this one goes just like this. Okay. And it just snaps in. Perfect. Now we are going to take new screws. Always use new screws for this work. At the same time we are going to put a rubber band through this bushing so it doesn't fall down. Alright, now it holds it in place. I inspected previously bushing. There is no need to change it because it's perfectly round and well within spec. And now we are going to torque everything to spec. It's like 50 Newton meters. That's it. And now we can do exactly the same thing on the other side. So the next thing I have here are camshaft followers for both left and right side exhaust and intake. And since these were in really terrific shape, we saw that in some of the previous videos, I'm just going to reuse them. Same as with those bearings on connecting rods, I'm going to grease them with assembly paste. Right, this is left side exhaust. So after we are done with the piston rods installation, we will proceed with the cylinders and cylinder heads. So we want to complete engine top end while the engine is on a table. If you remember, in some of our previous episodes we did a leak down test of this engine, and the engine proved to be really solid. We didn't have any leak in a top end. But just thinking about the model year of this bike, this is 1977, and at that time cylinder walls were made of steel. Later in 1981 they started using Nicosil plating, which is much sturdier material and usually does not go that wrong. If there is a problem with the compression on a cylinder side, it's usually related to rings. Well, these older models actually they don't have Nicosil plating. As I said, that's all steel walls, and every, I don't know, like 60, 70, 80, 100,000 miles, or whenever compression actually is suffering, you will need to rebore to the next stage, change pistons and rings. In all these hardware to do that, like pistons, rings and reboring, was much cheaper actually than it's today. But today we definitely have more options. So one of the options is still to do reboring to the next stage. Another option that is also possible, and maybe many people do it, is actually replating it with a Nicosil. And cost of these two is these days almost pretty similar. If you decide to replate it, you stay with the same piston size. You only need to pay for plating and for new rings. Third option, which I'm going to do here, is actually get new cylinders. And original were 750cc. These ones that I'm going to use is a Siebenrock kit. Big jugs, so 1000 cc. They are already Nicosil plated. In a kit, what you receive is new Getze rings instructions as well. And cylinder kits. So in a kit you will get new clips with new wrist pins. We are going to take them out. Okay, there they are. And of course, new cylinders. So this is complete kit. Cylinders come with a stainless steel pushrod tubes already pre-installed, which is really cool. Piston is already inside, but no rings on top of it. So we are going to remove piston. There it is. And then we will start with ring installation. Finally, we will put everything in a cylinder and then start with the assembly process. The reason why I decided to do it this way is I just didn't want to assemble this bike with the old jugs, and I was really not sure for how long they would be good, because bike was approaching actually that mileage where you need to start thinking and considering reboring or something to do with the cylinder. Since everything is already apart and we are doing full restoration now, it's actually a really good timing to think about cylinders. And basically almost the most cost-effective solution was to go with new jugs that are already nickel plated. Alright, so let's proceed. Okay, so we can open the box and get the rings first. They are marked 1, 2, 3. We are going to mount them on a piston. You start with a oil ring, oil scraper ring, and then second one and the third one is a top ring. Always make sure to read the labels. They are usually marked with a where is top. Okay, so there is a tiny stamp saying top, and that means it needs to face up. You can use ring pliers for this, but since they are made of steel, they are very brittle, so pay special attention not to spread them too much because they will break. Also, oil ring has a spring inside, and then wherever spring is connecting needs to be opposite from the opening of the ring itself. The way how you orient them, they need to be 120 degrees apart, and they are saying like second or middle one actually needs to face up. Alright, so let's start first with this one. And now, as I said, either with pliers or with the fingers, just to try slightly spread it. Until it's fully seated. Alright. You want to make sure that spring is fully in. There it is. Alright. And then top mark faces up. Second one is the 100 degrees, so it needs to opening faces up. And the third one, again, top mark faces up. This one, 120 degrees, so it will go here. That's it. Now we are going to use a compressor to compress them. Before that, we are going to oil cylinder walls and also piston skirt so it slides in more easily. The way how to insert it inside the cylinder, you can either do it, from this side or from a top. I prefer doing it from a top. I see there is some kind of chamfer here. In original cylinders there is much bigger chamfer on this side that you can use, but it's kind of more convenient if you are going from a top. Always oil the walls, but don't go too crazy about it. It's all you need is just a little, like a couple of drops of oil, and to make it wet. All right. Now we are going to use compressor and actually insert the piston with rings inside. Now make sure that they are properly oriented. And now with just slight taps with a wooden handle of a hammer, you can drive the piston in. There it is. So you really don't want to force anything, just, really slight taps, it's all what you need. What we need to do next is actually drive piston all the way out, so the hole for the wrist pin clears, and then we are going to put a sealant, like a liquid gasket, and mount the cylinder on the engine block. So for the gasket, I like to use this 3-bond 1215. This one actually, compared to some of the others, takes more time to cure. So you don't need to work that quickly with it. That's why I like using this one. If I remember correctly, it was like 1 hour or something like that. You have time to mount it. All right. So that should be enough. Wrist pin holes cleared from a cylinder, and now we will do some preparation here. Put one clip, insert the wrist pin to half of it, so we don't lose too much time in a preparation when actually doing when mounting everything on a engine block. This cylinder base has actually the groove for a big O-ring, but these bikes do not use it, so I'm going to leave that one open. I believe they introduced that in a late 70s or beginning of 80s, so this one goes without it. Alright, so first that we are going to mount our pushrod seals. They are directional, you cannot insert it however you like. There is a line actually here stamped on a rubber, and that line goes down. That's it. So next thing, we need to see how we are going to insert the wrist pin. Based on how engine case looks like, there is more space if I work later on a front side, so that's why I'm going to just put a clip here, so when my wrist pin is inserted, it doesn't go all the way through, and I save some time when I'm working on an engine block. Alright. Before putting the clip, I wanna oil this part as well, where my wrist pin will be inserted, and I'll do other side as well. Okay, one is in. Alright, now we are going to oil wrist pin. And get it started. And now we are going to clean very well this mating surface, and then put some sealant. So when putting sealant, you need to be very careful not to clog these holes here, because those are essentially oil passage holes for the rocker arm assembly. The best way how to do this is actually with the tip of a finger, just slightly spread the sealant. Don't go too crazy, because as you tighten it, sealant can go everywhere, so very, very thin film needs to be placed. Okay. Alright, so now we are ready to mount the cylinder back on a block. One important thing is to put the flywheel on OT mark. So engine needs to be top dead center on a compression stroke where you are actually placing a cylinder. In order for crankshaft not to move, I block the flywheel, so it should be good to go. Alright. Everything looks good. And final things I need to do is to put these small O-rings into the holes here. Okay. Some people like to put O-rings first on studs. I prefer not to do that because sometimes it can stay jammed, you know, between cylinder and case, and then it causes leaks. And now we are ready to mount Okay. At this point we can safely remove this rubber band. Right. Nice. Wrist pin is all the way in. And now we need to put second clip. Okay. Second clip is fully seated. Okay. And now it's time to push it. Okay. So to have it completely seated, we will need to put a head on. Nice. So first goes gasket, and these gaskets are directional again, so you cannot use it like this, or there's only one way in. And pay attention that here separation between this stud and a hole is smaller than stud and this hole, and that will tell you how gasket actually goes in. That's it. And now head. So next thing, we wanna put our push rods. Okay, always seated. Okay. Now these nuts and washers that go at 12 and 6 o'clock. beveled edge goes toward you. Alright, so adjustment for the valves is completely loose. When doing this, you need to do this so push rods are not actually pressing against this part while you are tightening it. Okay, so opening of a post needs to look outside. Right. And then nuts are put in such a way that raised edge goes towards the engine. Now while tightening, make sure that push rods are actually inside the adjusters, and we can slowly start. Okay, everything is snug, and now we are going to start with the torquing sequence. So first we are going to start with 50 Newton meters. These older airheads have a bit higher end torque for a top end. If you do that, you are actually taking chance of stripping studs. So I like to use the same torque values as for 81 and on models, and that's for the first stage is 15, for the second stage is 25, and final is 35 Newton meters. Okay, first one 15 Newton meters in crisscross pattern. Okay, second one 25. And the last one 35. So now when we have head mounted, we can actually proceed with the setting valve clearance. Usually 0.10 and 0.20 is 0.10 for intake, and then 0.20 for exhaust valve is usual setting. Here, since everything is brand new, we are going to set it a bit loose. so I'm going to use 0.15 and 0.25. Alright, so 0.25 for the exhaust. Twelve millimeter wrenches work here. That's it. And then 0.15 on this side. That's good. This can be a bit tighter. That's good. And now basically we can do everything the same on the other side. So final thing that we are going to do with the engine before we actually put it back in a frame is to put valve covers and gaskets on. At this point frame is back from powder coating. I'm assembling it with the new hardware, and as soon as we are done with this small task we will put the engine back in a frame. So in order to put the gaskets, I again like to use a gasket sealer, and in such a way that I'll put it here on this mating surface and also on a gasket, so it actually sticks to the head. So whenever I am removing the cover to adjust the valves, gasket is going to stay on a head, and that's how I prefer it. Benefit of using sealer is that you can reuse these gaskets for a very long time, and sealer will prevent those from essentially coming out. Alright, so let's do both at the same time. So these gaskets have kind of a printed side and a side without print. Printed side actually goes toward you. Okay, so a couple of minutes later, when it becomes tacky, we can actually put it on. It looks good to me. Okay. Now I can put back covers. I'm using all new hardware for this. Okay, we will leave it overnight so sealant completely cures, and then we can take it off whenever it's necessary. Gasket should stay in place. This is a really good time to do something like this because there is no oil, and then sealant can actually be glued. Also, in the same time, I'm going to put new Bosch spark plugs. These are correct for these engines. Okay. Always hand tie them first, and very important since this is aluminum head. Do this when engine is cold. If you are doing it when it's hot, be extra careful because you can actually strip these threads easily. That's it.